Hey, this is Nir Bashan, and welcome to Coffee Break. I am the author of a McGraw-Hill book called The Creator Mindset, which just won an award, which is awesome. This is the top 100 nonfiction book of all time, but this is not about me. This is about my friend Ted Wright, and he wrote a book called Fizz. This book is epic. I mean, we're talking about one of the finest books that McGraw-Hill has ever produced. Ted, welcome to the show.
Nir, ever interesting, ever produced. One of the best books ever, score underlined. Nir, it's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a fan of all of your work, so thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I'm deeply excited. You know, we've been trying to get you on for almost a year. Ted, tell us why this book is so important and why it's so important, especially now with everything going on.
So I think what you're finding, and you've been finding really since the late 90s, but it really accelerated during COVID, that broadcast and its efficiency to move markets has really decreased. And it decreases more and more. There's no CMO, there's no CEO out there that I know who says, oh, I'm getting so much more return on my media dollars than I were last year, right? And so what has happened is people have failed to really trust broadcast like they used to. And now they really have switched and they trust their friends. And you see this from Edelman in their trust barometer. You see this in the work of Ed Keller. Rashad Tobaccowala just put something up on Sunday, basically saying, look, the whole idea behind marketing now is to market through people, not to people. And so, yeah, I wrote this book a minute ago because I've been doing this for a long time, this word of mouth marketing thing. We're the people who brought Pabst Blue Ribbon back from the dead like 20 years ago. So we've continued to do these things. So for everyone who's watching this, everyone who's listening to this, your job is to sell more stuff to more people more often for more money. That's it. And so you need to use the most efficient tools possible. Right now, and for the last 5 years, it has been expanding. All of the data says your number one tool to get more people to buy more of your stuff is a conversation between two people who know each other.
And I love it, right? And that you go into some really good detail in this book, but you have the naysayers, right? You always have the people that are like, we have the Super Bowl. We just did a Super Bowl ad. We're good. Everything's fine. Everyone loves Super Bowl ads, right? What do you say to stuff like that?
So I love Super Bowl ads too. Who doesn't love Super Bowl ads? They put a bunch of creativity into it. And I have friends, we have clients and we have friends who do Super Bowl ads. And we've asked that question. It's like, well, why do you do this? Since you know advertising, like there's so much more wrapped up into a Super Bowl ad, like access to tickets. People talk about me for 3 weeks before. They talk about me for 2 weeks afterwards. It's also really important for my creatives to be able to do that so they can all go to the south of France and drink middling rosé wine, sometime in the spring. So the important thing to remember about Super Bowl ads or any ads, the biggest utility for ads today is to remind somebody of a story they heard from their friends, not to get them to go try something for the first time. So you want great taste and less filling as an ad, but you want that now after two people have talked to each other and said, Dave, you know what? I drink all this beer and I feel so bloated afterwards, and I drink this other one and and I feel great. And you're like, that's what you want. And then the ad comes in and reminds. So in North America today, the biggest utility for an ad is to remind somebody of a story that they've already heard from their friend. That's why word of mouth and broadcast work hand in glove together. You can't win a war with just ground troops or just air support. You can't win a marketing campaign unless you have boots on the ground as well as things in the air. And so we're just talking, we know about the things things on the ground. So that's what word of mouth is. Getting two people, one person to share a story with somebody else about something they love. If you can have that happen, that story is 10 times more believed and 100 times more likely to drive trial than that same information that comes from broadcast.
My guest today, Ted Wright, his book is called Fizz, Harness the Power of Word of Mouth Marketing to Drive Brand Growth. This is a powerhouse of a book. I suggest you all run out and get a copy immediately. Ted, the follow-up question to that is this. way that people transact has been forever changed. It is not what it used to be even 2 years ago or 5 years ago or even a month ago, right? It used to be that product or service A would interact with client B, they would transact, and, money would flow, right? It would, somebody would buy something. Now, how do you address that emerging marketplace that said that does not exist anymore?
So all of the data is that 70% of all these word of mouth conversations that happen face to face in what we're doing, or also face to face in people actually talking to each other when they're in close physical proximity to each other. I mean, these used to be called viral marketing because it acts in the same way as a virus. The closer I am to you and the more intimate I am with you, the more likely you are to be infected by my story, right? And these people who share these stories, these advocates, their stories are so powerful and they enjoy telling these stories so much that their stories get shared in excess of 40,000 times within a single year within their social graph. 70% of those are face to face, but 30% are online. And you love that. And what was crazy about COVID, which surprised us all, was that people at the end of COVID value this face to face interaction more than they did before, because all they had was digital and they missed the face-to-face. And people are like, oh my God, I missed this. And they pay more attention now than they did in the past. So it's been a really cool thing to see. And brands that focus on this grow tremendously. Everyone who's watching this, everyone's thinking about it. You can't name a brand in the last 20 years that's grown significantly that hasn't grown on the backs of or as a major part of word of mouth. U.S. consumers sharing a story with other people that they know.
Storytelling, one of the most important parts of the dialogue today in business. My guest, again, is Ted Wright. He wrote a book called Fizz, Harness the Power of the Word of Mouth Marketing to Drive Brand Growth. Highly recommended book. Ted, I ask this to all guests, because I'm all about creativity, right? So How did this book, and I know the answer because I read it, right? But how did this book make us more creative?
So it makes you more creative this book makes you more creative because it pulls you out of worrying about the channel and puts you into what is the story. So a story that is most likely to get shared has three particular traits. It's authentic, it's interesting, and it's relevant. Or if you like acronyms, it has air. So if your story has air, it will fly around and it will lift the wings up of everyone who's telling it, and it will get passed around. And so that's what the creative part of it. It takes people out, it takes people out of the rules of, it's got to be on this channel or that channel, and says, okay, how can we get more people to have this conversation? And if that's the intimate part of your question, then you can do anything you want. And so that has really jumped up the creativity, which has jumped up the conversation, which ends up jumping up your sales significantly.
My guest today, Ted Wright. The book is called Fizz. The philosophy is unbelievable. For a very, very small price of admission, you can get this wonderful, amazing, fully dived in brain dump from one of America's premier writers on this particular field. Incredible book. Ted Wright is my guest. Thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for writing an amazing book.
Nir, thank you for having me. Always great to see you. I look forward to the next time.